the Color Guard Committee drafted a proposal and a timeline to move forward with the WGI model. So many of you voted. Thank you for your vote. Of the 126 members that voted in June, 90% voted for the proposal, for transitioning to the WGI model. Clear proof that most people in the association were ready for a change. So you can kind of see the timeline where we've been. We operate very heavily off of timelines. So as you can see, a lot has been checked off and we still have some to do. So here's where we are now. We are now a WGI circuit partner, super exciting. We have held judges meetings and training with color guard judges. I think percussion judges are having one soon. If they haven't already had one, I'll have to follow up with Baker. Our color guard judges and percussion judges are in the process of completing Wgi Certify, which is the training for all WGI judges. We have done instructor outreach. We've revamped the NCBA specific policies for winter activities, and we're increasing our social media presence. So if you are not following us on Instagram, pull out your phone right now and follow us at NCBA_winter. We'll be doing a lot of advertisement there, and it'll be important that your students and you are following our Instagram, especially for winter 2021. So where we're going to be having ongoing training, hopefully bringing in WGI leaders to provide training for our judges and maybe even for instructors along the way. As part of the transition to the WGI model, a Q&A packet has been created for instructors. I think that I sent it out to all of you. If you don't have it, you'll be able to get it. I'm going to have Rachel put it on the website for us. So all the information that you'll need will be on the website. And if there's information that you can't find, again, please reach out to us. We're super happy to help. So the next several slides will go over the content of that Q&A packet that the committee developed. So the packet, again, will be available on the website. But for now, I'm going to pass it over to Ron to talk specifically about general effect and design analysis, which are some of the two biggest changes in this transition.
Okay. Thank you, Marcus. That was a good introduction. And yes, we are excited to be aligned with WGI. And part of the alignment brings along a new caption for us, which I am really excited about, which is the design analysis caption. I think somebody had actually already a question about that in the chat. So yeah, DA, otherwise known as design analysis. And we still will have general effect judges. And in fact, when we're done with the as soon as we're done with all the tiers, we will have actually 2 GE judges and 1 design analysis judge. And so I think for you guys today as an introduction, we just kind of wanted to talk about, mostly about design analysis, since that is the new one. And we can answer questions as to what the difference is. But if you did receive this packet, hopefully you did have a chance to read through it to already kind of have a general idea of what we're going to talk about today. It's going to be just a brief introduction today. So yeah, if you can read up on the screen right now, you can basically see the definition of both captions. And entertainment value, if you think of that, that's mostly general effect. And then design analysis is more analytical and structural because it actually has to do with the underlying plan onto which the general effect is built. And hopefully you'll have a better understanding of that as we move forward. So Marcus, can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so this is the first page of the document that I prepared for you guys as instructors. It talks about, again, the fact that design analysis is actually analytical and structural, meaning that there's actually a system to which design is produced. And the design analysis judge will be able to analyze how you are implementing those various elements of design. And so therefore it becomes a very different kind of look at your design, as opposed to the emotional effect that the students are able to achieve with their performance, which is more general effect based. So that's kind of the outline, yeah. This is the DA points of comparison, just kind of looking at, as we start our journey into WGI, most of our color guards are going to fall into these two classes, which we will talk about later because they're actually broken down into further divisions of these two classes. But the regional A class and the A class is more of a national look at the A level. And this chart here talks about the differences of the levels. And if you look across left to right, you'll see how the regional A class in composition and in excellence, if you take those points directly across, they don't always necessarily match exactly. And that's because there are two different levels that we're talking about. So I think one of the greatest things about being a WGI affiliate is now we can actually talk to each class specific to that class. So these are the points of comparison for the regional A class, and then we have a separate points of comparison for the A class. And I think that that will really serve our guards well, depending on the level that they're in. So if you're a regional A class guard, you won't be expected to perform at the A class level because that's actually the next level higher, if that makes sense. So that is somewhat different for us. But I think that it brings a lot of, in my opinion, it brings some relief to the instructors. All right. So again, design analysis is very structural and there's a system about it. And what I wanted to do here is introduce you to some of the building blocks, the elements of design in their definition. So these actually, I'm actually a visual artist and I'm an illustrator, and almost all of these words really transfer to the design that I do on an everyday basis, but they're definitely part of what you do with your winter guards. So the idea of line, the idea of shape, balance, dimension, texture, space, mass, emphasis, and motion, not so much motion for a visual artist, but definitely motion for us as dancers. These are the elements of, some of the elements of design that the judges will be trained on so that they know how to respond to the things that you put into your program as elements of design. So hopefully this will begin to serve as kind of a foundation to our understanding of vocabulary, so that when the judge talks about dimension, you will have a better understanding of what they're talking about. If they talk about balance, you'd have an understanding. Okay, so this part of the handout that you were given talks more about how to actually implement those elements that we just looked at. How do you actually use them? You know, what do they really mean to you? And so this breaks down how you might use some of those elements of design in staging, and how you might use them in movement and equipment vocabulary. And it just kind of lays out what the qualities of a good design is. And so if you look down at the bottom, you'll see clarity of intent, variety. I think most of you, just inherently know these things, but I think it's good to be able to look at it on paper and know that the judges are looking at similar words so that our language can start to become the same and that we have a better understanding of what we're trying to achieve. All right, so this is new to you guys. This is something I put together yesterday for you. And this is actually taking it back a few steps. Let's say that you've been thinking about doing a winter guard, but you haven't done it for maybe 8 years, or this is your first year, or this is your 3rd year, or maybe it's even your 10th year with NCBA. what I wanted to do here is kind of illustrate for you some of the ideas that are design considerations that perhaps you do without realizing that you are a designer. Because I think possibly there might be some of you that think, oh, wow, I'm not a designer. I don't know how to do that. I don't even know what the caption's looking for. When in fact, you really are designers. You just maybe haven't thought of it that way. Your design process actually starts when you're thinking about a show and you think, okay, I want to do this kind of concept. You've already begun. That's part of the design process. And in fact, that's something, the program concept is something that the judge can speak to. So if you look at those bullet points there, these are, I thought, key points. And by the way, I pulled these from the WGI website, but these are key points that I thought that really could serve NCBA and this transitional time. So, you know, if you look at those first few bullet points, I think that you'll probably just kind of nod and go, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that. Yes, I understand that. I thought that the last bullet point that I brought in was really good for us to look at, because I feel like our NCBA guards perhaps don't always consider the program concept beyond its inception. But what we'd like you to now start thinking about is how are you going to implement that concept throughout the course of the program, even to the point of a great ending that has to do and brings home that concept. So I think that's an area of growth for us, and that's why I included it. There were on the website, there probably were, you know, twice as many bullet points. I just tried to edit them out to serve you guys as the best as I thought. Okay, so the next thing, obviously, is sound design. You're going to start thinking about what kind of music you're going to do. And again, if you look at the last bullet point there, be careful of the music with more depth than you can illustrate. Can you and your students pull it off? I think that this is an area of growth for us. I think that often, and I'll speak for myself as a winter guard instructor with NCBA, I kind of struggled, especially in the beginning, thinking that I could pull something off with the orchestration of the piece of music. It was actually too grand, too big for us. And so I've learned a lot, and sitting on now on the judges side, I've learned about how to kind of tailor that back a little bit. If you only have 8 students, you might not want to do a grand orchestra arrangement. You might want to pull back on that a little bit. So that's why I included that bullet point. Pacing of the program is also very much a part of the design process. You guys know what that's all about, but this puts it down on paper, and it tells you how and almost in what order it happens. Once you have your sound design, it's kind of hand in hand. The pacing of the program and the sound design work together. As you create your sound design, you're also thinking about pacing of the program, and vice versa. So when you're trying to pick music for your show, you're going to be thinking about the pacing of the program. And again, I just wanted to kind of give you just kind of a step back and look at this big picture. So I might be getting too specific at this point, but I guess I just want you to know that you've already been designing. And now we have a judge that's actually going to be looking for that. This particular page, I pulled directly from the material. I didn't change it. I didn't edit it. I just thought it was really good to have. And so, you know, in this venue here today, we probably won't take a look at every bullet point, but this material will be available to you. So it just, again, I think it takes what you already were given as the theory of design, and it kind of puts it more into practical use to you. What does it really mean? What does design mean to you? And these bullet points and the definitions at the top, I think will hopefully serve you very well. And I'm really excited about the growth potential for our guards. And I think that this is going to, I think that the design analysis caption is probably going to make the biggest difference in our shows, because the other captions obviously have already been there. So I think that pulls me to the end of my presentation. How'd I do on time, Marcus? Good, all right. So you may have questions. I don't know, Marcus, if there's time right now, if we want to speak directly to design questions now, or if you want to hold everything to the end.
Yeah, let's hold everything to the end. If you have
Okay.
specific questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll try to get to them at the end. I'm also thinking that after this meeting, once we, you know, get through winter 2021, or maybe like before that, if there's an appetite for it, we can talk to, we can set up a different training that for all the instructors that dives like more in depth for design analysis, if that's something that people want. So we can discuss that certainly in the future. So I think, yeah, that was great, Ron. Thanks so much for that overview and for your work putting these documents together.
Sure.
I think now we'll transition over to grantees. And he'll be talking about judges' commentary and the breakdown of scores during this transition.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marcus. So these were questions that were brought up to us, and we made this document to make sure we address them. Hopefully some of them were your questions as well, and some might be things that you haven't thought about. But one of the questions, how will judges' commentary change? They won't necessarily change, but we will definitely look more into the scope of what WGI gave to us. So we're really going to look at equal observation of both the what and the how, or the performers are achieving, whether it's in design analysis, general effect, movement, and equipment. And going on, instead of trying to, you know, give this to the whole association at once and just kind of throw it in, oh, we're going to do WGI right away. We wanted to give us time as a committee and also the instructors time to kind of digest this. So we broke it up in 3 years, or 3 tiers. So this first year, we were going to keep the same captions and use the same 3 and slice it up accordingly. So it's a little bit more on the upstairs captions. And especially for this first year was to design and to really recruit and train judges. So we get more honors. So we make sure that we have enough, provides instructor outreach, what we're doing right now, and to develop a framework for implementation to the WGI criteria. And this really has to go with a lot of that one caption for design analysis. And we're actually on track for this. So even though this year is completely different because of COVID, we're still on track for this. So year 2 would be tier 2, introducing design analysis caption, and each caption itself would get equal quarter. And then year 3, which would be 2022, we would introduce that second GE judge to have a full panel, and this would align with WGI. Thank you very much. So next we're going to go to Colin, who's going to explain the new sheets and what they mean.
Thank you, grantees. Okay, so in the interest of time, we're just going to be going over the Regional A movement sheet to highlight the differences from our old sheets. The good news for everyone is that the vast majority of the content on both sheets is exactly the same, just placed in a different format. The visual aid that I have will highlight the differences between the sheets, so we can go ahead and take a look at that to familiarize ourselves. Okay, so here at the top, you'll see circled in red is the class descriptor. In this case, we're looking at the Regional A class sheet, which we know has a 70-130 split, encouraging groups to focus on the training program that grantees will be explaining further in the next segment. You'll see circled in orange on the left. Each box has a point value of 100 points, totaling 200 on the sheet, which is different from the old NCBA sheets, which had 150 points in each box, totaling 300. The 70-130 weighting will be calculated during the tabulation process. Also, it's important to note that each sheet has the same point values for each caption across the Regional A, and open classes. Over in the middle, circled in blue, is how each box is split up numerically. That used to be on the back of our sheets, showing the point value of each box. Firstly, it's important to note that the order of the boxes has now flipped, with 5 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. You'll also notice that boxes 3 and 4 have the greater amount of points, and that's where the majority of the groups are going to fall into, so that gives the judges more points to work with there. if we move to the back of the sheet, thank you. The biggest difference you'll notice is the layout, mainly that the points of comparison box highlighted in pink in the middle is in the middle rather than off to the side. Again, the information in the box is really similar to our old NCBA sheets. It's just placed in a different spot. And we've compared the old sheets with the new sheets. And I mean, even the verbiage, everything is exactly the same for the most part in terms of that points of comparison. Another helpful tool that's included in the back of the sheet is located at the top and highlighted in lime green. And that's the amount of criteria met / amount of the time. This will help guide you to read and understand your numbers to know how much of the criteria has been met and the amount of time that it was met. And this helps the judges to establish scoring neighborhoods so you can see where within those neighborhoods your group is falling into. Lastly, underlined in blue are the descriptors for each class, and they will be different for each class based on what sheet and what class you're in. Okay, so now we're going to move it to Grantees, who's going to be going into the 70-130 weighting and how that works out. So thank you.
Thanks, Colin. So yeah, the 70-130 split was brought into WGI and WGI circuits because there was a huge kind of a little bit of an issue with a lot of the A class groups giving, or the instructors or designers giving students something that was out of their achievability. So we grant now 70 to what you're doing and 130 to how you're doing it. And this is super important for the regional A classes and the national A classes. Regional A, of course, is more of the beginning introductory skills, and national A is for the more intermediate national skill level. So I give an example here. This is a really good read through, but just to sum it up, there are two groups, Group Y and Group Z. Group Y got 75 what and 75 how. Kind of, you know, they hit it right on that achievement level. And Group Z got an 80 what, so they got more what and only 71 how. Now, if you see total out of 200 would be 151 for Z and 150 for Y. But then when we factor in the 70-130 splits, we do the calculation here. This is done during tabulation. We see that the victor would actually be Group Y because the instructors were strategic and made sure that the students were given something that they were able to achieve. And they did, because they had equal scoring for their what and their how, or their vocabulary and excellence for a downstairs caption, and they were the victor. So for all instructors, especially in NCBA and anywhere else, it's really strategic if you give your students something that they can achieve while also giving them something that will challenge them, and they will be able to do well towards the end of the season. So there's a great video explanation. If you read this and still don't quite get it, because it is hard to wrap your head around the first time around, there's a very good video. We gave a playlist, and you're gonna definitely wanna watch that. So now I'll bring it over to Marcus, who's gonna explain the new class descriptions.
Awesome, thank you, Grantees. So the purpose of this slide is to show the relationship between the old NCBA classes and the new classes. One big change is that there's only one middle school division. Historically, in NCBA, we have not had too many middle schools, so it wasn't making a lot of sense to break the that middle school division up into multiple divisions. Now, in the future, if we see that we're having an increase of middle school enrollment for competition, then the committee can meet again to decide if we want to have like a middle school A and a middle school AA or something like that. So I want to emphasize first that it might take some time for divisions to settle. Of course, these are the old NCBA. We all knew what novice looked like, and we knew what intermediate looked like. So you'll see that there's a blend for some like regional, the top of regional AAA and regional AA is a blend between our old high novice and low intermediate schools. So please allow time for those to kind of settle over time. The other thing I want to mention is the NCBA is now, will offer independent competitive opportunities for independent groups to come in. And we definitely want to encourage you to read the class description. So those were emailed out to you. If you need them again, please let me know, but it's also linked in the Q&A book that we'll post on the website. So yeah, so I guess I should say that we'll have regional AAA will be our lowest division in NCBA, regional AA to regional A, and those will all be on the regional A class sheet. So these are all just subdivisions of this regional A sheet. And then the A class will be national AAA, national AA, national A. I know it might be a little confusing right now because it's something brand new that we're introducing, but I am super confident that you'll all get it over time. If we're being completely honest, sometimes I still have to like refer back to the sheet when we're having conversations with the committee, so don't beat yourself up over it if you're a little bit confused. Let's see. Is there anything else that I wanted to say about that? I think that's good for now. And of course, it goes up to National A here, but you know, eventually we can offer Open and World, and if somebody in Open or group in Open and World wants to compete in NCBA, of course, they're welcome. But the purpose of this is to show that, generally speaking, even our Open guards fell within the National A kind of class description for WGI. Let me see if I hit every bullet here. Perfect. So I'm going to pass it over to Colin again really quickly to talk about the interval times, but I just want to emphasize again, if you have confusion over this, please, please, please reach out. We don't want this to be frustrating for anyone. We just want to provide the support that everyone needs, so feel free to reach out. Colin?
Thank you,
Oh, wait,
Marcus.
sorry. This is the independent slide. I guess I forgot to show that. But here's independent. Yeah, moving on.
I'm good now? Okay, so here we are. We have the table showing the timing rules. On the left are the WGI classifications showing how they will align with our classes at our circuit. And this will be especially beneficial for groups who perform in more than one circuit, as our timing rules will better align so groups won't run the risk of penalizations for timing if they wrote their programs for the WGI affiliated circuits. The interval time begins when the groups cross the timeline, regardless of how your floor is folded. I cannot stress the importance of that enough. If you fold your floor front to back and the floor and the line is vertical, it doesn't matter. Whenever you cross that timeline, your time is starting. The time stops when the last member crosses the timeline. And these interval times will be a change for our circuit. And we used to have the luxury of 10-minute time slots. And it's especially important for all instructors to know that these time slots are across the board. That includes warm-ups, standbys in between groups. So that's going to make the pacing of the show quicker. So make sure you're taking that into consideration when working out travel times to get from room to room. So that way you're not missing out on your time. NCBA has deviated from WGI in some aspects, and those are noted in red down at the bottom. So be prepared in case other instructors have questions. You can better guide them through these rule changes. And also, just to let you guys know, if you are working with a middle school group, if you want to elect to be placed out of the middle school division and placed in a high school divisions that the judges deem appropriate based on your class descriptions, that is an option that you can go ahead and take advantage of. Yeah, so you can see on the right, talking about what I was saying, with regardless of how you fold your floor, once you roll over that timeline, times are rolling. Okay, so next, let's go to Grantis. He's gonna talk about the class descriptions.
Grantis, do you mind if I say something really quickly? I did forget to say something about the class descriptions.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to give a huge shout out and a huge thank you to the folks in CCGC. I know that Lee's on right now, but I did meet with the president of CCGC and their chief judge when we were developing these classifications. So I do want to say that CCGC and NCBA's classifications are now aligned for people that are going back and forth between circuits if they so wish to do that. And I think it's also aligned now with Southern California. The idea was to try to get everything aligned from the south all the way up. So I just wanted to make sure that I gave appropriate kudos where it's deserved, and thank CCGC for their support and help as we are transitioning towards this WGI model. Thanks, Grantees. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Thanks so much for that. So this is a really great tool that we're providing to everyone. I really want to thank Marcus and Colin for putting this together. They went out and scoured the internet to make sure that they found these recordings. So these are groups from WGASC, which is the SoCal Winter Guard Circuit, the really big one. And they went and found videos from schools that are in these classes. They wrote down the old WGASC subclasses, and then now what they're going to be called the new subclasses for NCBA. So if you're curious of what a really good middle school group will look like, you have two examples. What they used to have junior high AAA to AA. What's the top tier of a middle school class? You can look at Gauge in middle school. You can click that link in the document. And I highly, highly, highly encourage you to look at all of these just to kind of look, you know, scaling up what do groups in different classes look like. What's the example group? Everybody has different style. Everybody has different design, but like the caliber of each group, what does that look like? You can look at regional AA, regional A. What's the top? What does a really great regional A guard look like? And if you see here for their scoring potential and what they got at championships versus the beginning of the season, they got in the 90s. Any guard that gets in the 90s is actually ready, might be ready for the next classification. So if you look at this guard, regional A, like, wow, they're really good for regional A. They could actually next year potentially get into the national A class. Also look at the national AAA, AA, and national A. I will say the national A, open, and world-class groups for these links have an asterisk, and the asterisk means that these groups compete nationally. They go outside their circuit, they do regionals, and they actually go to WGI World Championships in Ohio. So they're gonna probably make finals, and all three of these groups did. So when you look at them and how amazing they are, just know that these are highly competitive. They will complete for world championships according to their classification. I also want to let you know that this box up here is a very helpful playlist. Go ahead and click on it when you can. It explains, there's a video, you have to scroll down to which video you want to watch, but the 70-30 split, if you don't understand that, please watch that. Also how the judging system works for more in depth, and also A class. So like how to program A class. There's great instructional videos there if you're a visual learner like me. Now going back to Marcus for the scoring range.
Awesome, thanks, Grantees. So the purpose of this slide is just to show the ranges for each classification. With more numbers now, we can really be more mindful with the point spreads as judges. So you can see the low score at championships. We'll just take this regional AA group. The low score was a 58.39, and the high score was an 82.20, with a scoring range of 23.81 points. So the whole purpose is just to show that within these classifications, there's going to be a spread, just like it used to be an NCBA, but there's going to be the opportunity for us to be more mindful with our points, because there are more points now for us to work with, especially in those middle boxes. And that's just the purpose of this slide. So I'm going to pass it to Ron to briefly talk about exhibition performances. Oh, sorry. This is another thing that Colin and I put together. Colin went through all the recaps for the Winter Guard circuit in Southern California. And we made this chart, again, just to show, and of course there's outliers and there's like different considerations that we have to keep in mind, but we went week to week and found the high score and the low score for each classification in Southern California, so we can have an idea of what the weekly increase was on average, and then what the season total increase was for the season from the beginning to championship. So this is just to show that we've done a lot of like deep dive into data to really inform our decision making, and we use this information when we're training our judges as well. Now, Ron.
All right, thanks, Marcus. Boy, when I look at that table, my artist mind just kind of scrambles. I can't see all those numbers right. All right, so another cool thing that we'll be doing in the future is bringing in or inviting exhibition groups to perform, meaning there would be 3 different types of exhibition groups. If they choose to, they could receive judges' comments, and that's it. Or they could receive comments and scores, but the scores, because they're an exhibition, wouldn't be published. Or they could choose to just simply perform for the audience. So not really knowing yet what this might allow, bring in, we are at least allowing for the option of performing in exhibition. So that's all that this is really about. I think we're ready to turn it over to Colin at this point for the next topic. Is that good enough, Marcus? Okay.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, so to help the color guard committee make sure that we were taking into consideration the comments, questions, and concerns of the instructors within our circuit, we put together what we are calling the steering committee. The committee is comprised of a group representing each division, and we're chosen based on criteria that we, the color guard committee, decided upon at the beginning of this spring. I met with the steering committee multiple times to facilitate a dialogue that helped shape the manual that we're looking at today. So these conversations were incredibly beneficial to our circuit, and they even got some circuit policies that were conceived during the meetings passed in the June meeting, which was super exciting. They are Nikki from Park, Sheldon from JFK, Jennifer from Cordova, and Samantha from Tenaya. And I think I saw a couple of them on this meeting. We do want to thank the steering committee for their time and contributions to NCBA. So awesome, thank you guys. It's been wonderful working with you. So now I think we're gonna go to Marcus, who will be going into the professional development that the judges have been working on for the NCBA transition to the WGI model. So thank you.
Thanks, Colin. And I just want to echo her thanks to this committee. I think it was super important to the color guard judges committee that we are including the important stakeholders in this conversation, which are the instructors. And a lot of times the instructors have been left out of the bigger conversation. So we're super excited to be pulling that perspective into our decision making. Let's see. So we are now aligned with WGI. We talked about that. So as judges, we have to be more consistent than ever. People are going to be even more critical than ever now. So we're working with the judges again to increase training so that there is consistency. As I mentioned, NCBA, CCGC, and the Southern California Circuit are aligned in terms of classifications now. So in conversations with the judges, we've talked about why professional development is necessary. And we've discussed that change can cause discomfort, even for maybe some of you on this call, moving to, or on this meeting. Moving to something brand new may be really uncomfortable, but this discomfort is needed in order to grow. So this is a super exciting change, in my opinion, for NCBA, and I think that other people are excited too, especially because they voted for this. And how many people are on this call? 31 people, so I think that's pretty impressive. So you're all part of moving the association forward in a new direction. So that's something that I think you should be super, super excited about. I did want to talk about the WGI Certify Requirement, just so you as instructors know what all judges are going through. It doesn't matter if it's a new judge coming in and being apprenticing, or if it's somebody that's been judging for 25 years, or any one of us on this committee. Every single one of us have to go through WGI Certify. It's a requirement based on the motion that was made and the motion that was passed. And judges are at all different levels of completing it, but in order to judge, they have to complete it. So there's WGI 100, 200, and 300. And 300 right now is makes you a WGI certified judge in a specific caption. So all judges will be trained in their respective caption or captions. So if they want to judge multiple captions, they have to do extra training. So I just wanted to put that out, that we're not just transitioning to something new and not considering the training piece for all of the judges that are involved. So judges training is ongoing. For those of you that don't know what happens behind the scenes, the committee is always reviewing scores. They're always reviewing commentary. We're always having side conversations with judges, and we're just trying to build up this dialogue within our community of judges, so that we could be the best for the students. Because after all, we do all this work for the kids. Next, we're going to talk about Winter 2021, which is, I'm sure, a lot of people are anticipating. So buckle up. It's a lot to talk about. If anyone in the committee wants to hop in while I'm talking about this at any time, please do. Oh, I should say this too. We're here to help. So anytime you have any questions, as always, please reach out. You can email my NCBA Winter address, and I will forward that to the appropriate person for an answer, or I will answer it myself. Always happy to help. So here we go. First of all, I said it in the beginning. I want to say it again in case anyone hopped on after that. Pull out your cell phones if you haven't done so already, and follow our Winter Activities page. It's at NCBA_winter. So do that now. So here's what we're doing for Winter 2021. We're hoping that we'll be offering something for everyone, both competitive and non-competitive opportunities. We were not prepared to go to live competition yet. It's just too risky. And I just think as a whole, we weren't ready for that. So the purpose of the non-competitive events is to keep students engaged, interested, active, to allow instructors an opportunity to engage with the students, and to provide free performance venues for the students. I'll talk really quickly about the non-competitive that we're having in January, February, and March. And we're trying to have a little fun with it, and it's called The Category Is. So the purpose of this is to increase engagement, to encourage units to think about how to generate effect through music, costume, characterization, and environment. So we'll get to the specifics of how these are submitted in a moment, but you'll see in January, the first category is Mask, M-A-S-K, Masquerade. In February, Festival of Frights. And then in March, the category is Marching Back to the 90s. So we're encouraging people to be super creative with this. And we're hoping that instructors will get involved with their kids, and that kids can enter solo and small ensembles on their own as well. There's also non-competitive events in January, February, and March, and those are performer's choice. So there's no category or theme attached to it. So for those that didn't want to do the category is, there's an option to choose whatever music, whatever theme, however they want to do it. And then finally, we have competitive events. And of course, the purpose of the competitive event, similar to the non-competitive, is just to provide a competitive opportunity. So there'll be an opportunity in February, and then in March, and then the final competitive opportunity will be what we are calling championships, which will be in April. Let's see. All this information will be posted on the website also, and I'll email it out as well. Let's see, so let's move on to the next slide. So first, here's the due dates for each thing that'll be submitted electronically, and the results will be announced. That date is listed as well. So here's the non-competitive opportunities. So solo and small ensembles for guard, percussion, and drum major. The category is and the performer's choice. So you can have a solo entry or a small ensemble, and we classify small ensemble as 2 to 9 performers. Again, I know this is a lot, bear with me. So you'll see, we're only gonna talk about guard, percussion, and drum major will talk about their own thing. But for guard, you can enter flag, rifle, saber, movement, or mixed equipment. The timing for this is 30 seconds to 1 minute. Short clips to focus on creativity and to focus on excellence. So how are you gonna capture this with video? You can do 1 camera, 1 take, or you could get creative with video editing. It's up to you. Those of you that know how to edit and like put things on different tiles on a screen, I think that's super exciting. I don't know how to do that, so I probably have to do the one camera, one take. But I know that we have a lot of creative people in our association. This is the exciting thing to us. The cost is free. We want to give performance opportunities that don't necessarily cost money so that people stay engaged. So for the non-competitive opportunities, there will be no judges commentary, no ranking provided, but the top 3 from each division, guard, percussion, drum major, will be posted on our Instagram. If I haven't said it already, follow NCBA_winter on Instagram. So creative uses for this, and a lot of this is pulled from WGI, by the way, so I want to like give them credit where it's due. This is social distancing friendly. You can use props or unique locations, learn new skills for the future, sharpen your performance skills. I'm not going to read them all. You can read them when I send out the handout, but I'm just going to give an example. I know last year there was a drum major did a competition that was very thematic, and they did it in where the background was like, you can see tombstones and stuff. So that's what we mean by get creative with your environment. Next, does anyone on the committee want to go over competitive opportunities, or do you want me to keep going? I'll keep going. So competitive opportunities, we're calling this instructor choice. So this is for small ensembles, which are 2 to 9 performers, or large ensembles, which are 10 to more performers, or for solo drum majors, 1 performer. Well, we're just going to talk about guard. So in these competitive opportunities, you can do flag, rifle, saber, movement, or mixed equipment. We're seeing this as an opportunity for those that still wanted to put a quote unquote show together. So there's no minimum time, but there's a 6-minute maximum time. But these competitive entries will be placed into classes. So you'll place yourself in the class based on that chart that I showed you earlier. Middle school, regional AAA, all the way up to open. Again, there's no restrictions for how you record this, 1 camera, 1 take, or get creative with video editing. The cost for this will be $20 per entry, and you'll pay that on PayPal when you register. All the specifics on how to register will be posted at a later time, because I still have to work with Rachel and Kathy Edel about the specifics of that. Why $20 though? Because judges' commentary will be provided. So we have to pay judges for the time that they're putting in. Units will receive a festival style rating, so that's superior, excellent, or good, a 1, 2, or 3. But they'll be force ranked, so that we will choose the top 3 in each class, and the top 3 in each class will get a digital award that will be sent out, that people can put on their social media, that can be printed and framed and put, in the band room or wherever. This is very similar in terms of the digital award to what WGI is doing as well. And in order to keep costs down to $20, that's why we're also doing digital awards, because obviously we can't have live awards also. Okay. Whew. Next. So competitive opportunity, the final one is championships, and this is in April. And this is for solos, small ensembles, large ensembles for guard and percussion, or solo for drum major, okay? So same categories for solo entries. This is kind of like what we did at the end of our last winter season that didn't really happen. But we had several excellent entries, so we wanted to give people an opportunity to do it again. So solos can be 1 minute, 30 seconds minimum to 3 minutes maximum. And ensemble, same thing. So we're hoping that if people enter 2 times before championships with their ensemble, we'll be able to provide them with some feedback, some commentary of where they can improve, what they're doing well, so that when they get to championships, they have some comprehensive feedback to inform their decision making. Same thing with the classes for small and large ensembles, but the classes for solo entries will be junior, which will be grades 6 to 8, and teen, which will be grades 9 to 12. Video, no restrictions again. We're trying to put as few restrictions as possible on all of this, just so people can get creative, people can have fun, and there's not the stress of having all these different parameters. So the details, we will provide judges' commentary again. Units will receive a festival style rating. They will be ranked. An outstanding entry award for each category will be awarded, like we did last time, and the top 3 in each class will receive a digital award. Also, the top 3 from each department or each, I forgot what we were going to call this, grantees, from each guard, percussion, and drum major will be showcased on our Instagram as well. So for all the competitive opportunities, the top 3 will be posted, and then we're going to try to put a video reel together of all of the other ones so that everyone gets a little bit of camera time on social media. Yeah, so that's what we are doing. So then for awards, of course, they'll all be distributed electronically. Participating groups will receive digital awards. Those can be distributed to students as well. And the graphic will be designed to post on social media or to print and frame. And we'll post the results of each competitive event on NCBA's website. How do you submit your entries? I'm sure people are wondering. We're working out those details right now, but we wanted to share this information with you. So keep an eye out for those details. I'll email it out. We'll probably put it on Instagram, follow at NCBA_winter on Instagram, and we'll probably put it on Facebook as well. And Efren sent me this cool website. So if you need suggestions on how to design for a virtual winter, I encourage you to check this out and scour the internet for different creative ideas. I think this is a cool opportunity for everyone to be super, super creative. Same thing, how do you know what class you're in? We shared that earlier. If you have questions about where you think you might need to be, again, please don't hesitate to reach out. We do have to say this. We expect that the overall safety of all participants is the top priority. So we expect all small and large ensembles to follow health guidelines of their local area during the production of their entry. And if you have any questions, please, please, please reach out to me. I know that was a lot. So if you have, here's what I'll say first. Try to digest it first. And then if you still have questions after that, please don't hesitate to reach out. I see questions coming in the chat, and we have a Q&A time coming up, and we'll definitely get through it there. But I want to pass it to Colin really quickly just to introduce this Q&A time.
Whew, okay, thank you, Marcus. Okay, so the committee wants to make sure that everyone is feeling supported and set up for success as NCBA is transitioning to the WGI model and as we're moving into the 2021 season. So with that in mind, we're going to open it up and ask what support or additional training do you need from us to ensure that you feel comfortable going into this new season, or if you have any other questions, we're going to open it up. I will go ahead and take notes, but the whole committee will be chiming in to answer your guys' questions. So nice.
Yeah, so feel free to come off mute. These questions can be about, maybe we should do it in chunks. Let's take the first part of this. If you have specific questions about the transition to the WGI model, let's address those first. And then the second portion will be about winter 2021, is that okay with you guys, committee? Perfect. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now, I think. Stop share. Cool. So any questions specifically about the transition to the WGI model? Feel free to come off mute, or grantees, if you want to look in the chat box to see if there was any questions that came through as well. That would be awesome.
I have a question. With this transfer to the WGI model, will NCBA cease to exist, and we will just become in WGI, or is NCBA going to continue the title of our group?
I'm sorry, I had my computer on mute for the first part of that. Can you say it again? Because I want to make sure that I heard the.
Just really curious if with this change to the WGI model, if NCBA is going to cease to exist.
Oh, definitely not. NCBA is always going to be NCBA. WGI is just the model that NCBA is following for winter activities. So it's not like NCBA is going to become no longer. We will always be NCBA. We're just partnering with WGI, and
I understand that.
yeah. So
Okay. So with our fees for this year, our membership fees, should we still be sending those in even if our students are not going to participate in this year's winter activities as members?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know if I have a good answer to that. We always encourage people to pay their membership dues. But if you don't feel that there's a purpose for you to pay your dues this year because we're not providing you with that winter service, then that's a choice that you'll make. But I'll say that behind the scenes, there's a lot of things that NCBA does besides just winter activities that provide services for NCBA as a whole. So I'll just leave it at that.
I don't have a problem with it. I just want to make sure that they were still.
Yeah.
Do we need to do that now? Because normally we would send them in with our competition fees. And so I just wanted to know if it's something I should be doing right away so that to ensure my place in this membership.
Yeah, great question. So you can go online on the website and you can fill out the membership form, and I think it'll direct you to a PayPal link where you can pay electronically.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, great questions. Thank you. Lee.
Yeah, a couple of comments more than questions, because I've been involved with WGI for quite some time. I thought the board did a great job of presenting everything and covering almost everything they need to. Just a couple of things I want to make sure are clear. The 70-130 split is just for equipment and movement, not the DA and GE portion of it. And the judges should not even take that into consideration. That's all done at the tab portion of it. They need to use the criteria as written, and that's part of the training. The other thing is the difference in WGI is the bottom line number is 0. So there may be some middle school groups that first week that come out with 30s, and they may be devastated because they're used to, 60 as a D, 70 as a C concept, and WGI is very different from that. So that's something they really need to be aware of. And the final thing, I think most of you get this, but believe it or not, I've had arguments. If it says equipment time is 1.5, that means it's 1 minute, 30 seconds. I've had people argue, no, it's 150. It's like, no, 1.5 is 130. So, but again, Marcus, great job. I think you covered almost everything needed to be covered. So congratulations.
Yeah, and I want to give a big thank you to Lee, who's kind of acted as a de facto mentor to our committee. We did have a meeting with him and talked all this stuff out. So I want to thank him for his support as well and his guidance as we've been transitioning to this new NCBA Winter Activities model. So thanks so much, Lee, for your help and support. Hey, Jen.
Hey, I just have a quick question. I mean, it's obviously not going to be for 2021, but for 2022, we've talked about this in steering committee. Are we considering an eval show? Or are we talking about continuing on with first 2 shows, figuring out the classifications, especially since it's all new to everybody? So, I mean, I'm personally, I'm staring at 2 classes going, I have no idea which one might be good. So, that's just my big question.
Yeah, great question. First, I want to emphasize again that it might take some time for classes to settle, for us to figure out exactly where people are going to be placed. We have done a lot of, we've had a lot of conversation about an eval show and what that looks like and what we find the purpose to be. So it's something that we're definitely still discussing. We find a lot of value in having an evaluation show. But it's something, it's hard to require people to go to a gym and be evaluated and all that stuff. So we're throwing around virtual evaluation shows. So we're definitely, we're thinking about it. We don't have a good answer yet, but just to answer your question, we've thought about it. We're continuing to think about it. Depending on the week that we talk about it, sometimes we lean more towards a virtual evaluation where people just send a video of their show to the committee and the committee will determine where they're going to go. And we've talked about the value of meeting live and in person. So more information on that to come, but definitely as we start to try to figure out where people are going to go in each division, some kind of evaluation method is going to be necessary. So more to come on that.
Hi. I was wondering if NCBA is planning to have like learning opportunities for their instructors. I know that sometimes CCGC or WGI, they bring in like guard influencers that actually come in, talk about the design process, maybe talk about the equipment. Is that something that you guys are planning to do with this switch over?
Yeah, great question. And I would say most definitely. We've already been in conversation with some, I would say, pretty big WGI influencers and asked them if they would consider coming in and doing certain trainings for our instructors. So part of like the long-term plan after we roll this out and as we're rolling this out is to bring in people to do like not just clinics for the judges, but for students and for instructors, so that we are like tackling the education piece for everyone that's involved in the activity. We think it's super, super important. It's definitely something that we've talked about extensively as a committee. So yes, I think that's a great question, and that is our goal, to start bringing people in. So we just have to look at it, of course, from like a budget perspective. I guess that would be my responsibility, and figure out where the money is coming from before we put money out. But
That's great news. Thank you so much.
great question. And if you have specific suggestions, please let us know. We want to hear from you guys. The more we hear from you, the more that we can inform our decisions as well. So thanks for that question.
So Marcus, my name is Breland Martin. I just started this right before we had our shutdown here in California. So I'm new to all this. So we were starting to get ready to go to competition in March down in Sacramento, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then we got shut down, unfortunately. So we're going to be doing, if we do this in 2021 winter, or this winter, next March, it's all going to be virtual. Is that my understanding?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, right now, we're barely starting cohorts in our school right now. And right now it's just special education, which I'm also an instructional aide for special education. And then we have to be 2 weeks in the red tier until we bring in the next cohort, so forth and so on. So how's that going to look if we can't even be together right now to even practice?
Yeah, great question. I can answer that unless somebody else on the committee wants to tackle it.
I mean, because sorry to interrupt, I know you wanted to answer that, because I have a guard class just for my guard. And it's hard to even get them to come on for 20 minutes to say, hey, how's it going? You know, and like I said, as an instructional aide, it's hard to even get the kids to come on into class and participate in class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to even practice the norm guard routines or the basics, let alone to even get together or practice a routine.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I can tackle that question. So the beauty of what we're offering is like different opportunities. That's why I said there's something for everyone. So solo performances, you don't have to meet as a group in order to turn in an entry.
Right.
So that's definitely an opportunity for those that can't meet together. And the other thing is we're hoping that by providing these opportunities, it creates an opportunity for instructors and their students to engage with each other. So there's something to look forward to, so that you can say, okay, on this date, this could be due to NCBA and we can enter this, or on this date we can do this, or we have an opportunity to put the show together, of course, virtually, and submit it, and we could get feedback 2 times before championships and still have a competitive opportunity. So yeah, does anyone else want to, does that kind of answer your question?
I'd like to chime in a bit.
Go ahead, Colin.
Okay, so what I'm planning on doing a couple of things with the kids that I work with. So I'm going to talk about how I'm going to use this platform as a way to get my kids engaged. So I'm going to be setting some of the kids there, they can pick, I'm going to make it like an assignment basically. They get to pick one of the free ones that they can do, and they're going to be working on their routine and they're going to be writing it while I kind of coach them how to make it better, how to make it more seamless. So that way they're kind of seeing this activity through a different lens rather than just as somebody who's learning choreography. They're going to be stakeholders in their own choreography. They're going to kind of see what I go through when I'm writing something. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of bend this model to work for you. We're also going to be doing some competitive ones, but I think we're going to limit that to maybe like just 1 or 2. And we're going to continue to work, especially because we know what themes are coming up. We can work on those competitive ones from the very beginning. The second we start, I can't see my kids yet for, I think it's another couple of weeks, and then I can finally see them. We're going to be working on something now and continuing to work until the April championship. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can do this. If you just kind of make an assignment out of it a little bit, that's how I'm going to be approaching this.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that I'm having an issue with most of all is the combination of the middle school all in one division. I've been coaching middle school for 10 years and I have great teams, but they're always so small. And it just doesn't seem fair to submit kids who just start with kids who've been in middle school, 2 and 3 years. And that just doesn't seem fair. That's one of the issues I'm having with this new board or new way of putting things together. I saw in the chat a few times that if we get more middle schoolers that we possibly could have a second group, a second tier of middle schoolers, and I really am in support of that because I just don't feel that with the kids that I have every year, it's so much harder to dump brand new children who are just learning what they're learning in with kids who have been experienced in doing it for a few years. That's kind of my feelings about that.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point, and definitely we had a conversation as a committee about what it would look like if we had more middle schools, and we definitely would throw around or entertain the idea of splitting the middle school division. It's just not right now. Historically, we look back at the recaps for champs. I think that we had like maybe 4 or 5 groups at championships. It doesn't make sense to break 5 groups into 3 different classes. So that's why we're doing that now. And I would say that at the middle school level, I think that it's all about training. So to me, it doesn't really matter where the kids come from. All kids are starting in 6th grade, 7th grade, and so they have the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to try to build up their skills. So, I mean, certainly I understand that we're always getting new kids in every year in 6th grade, but I think I think it's definitely doable. And I think by putting everyone in the same class right now, it'll push people even harder if they want to be competitive.
So Marcus, another question is, Corey Goga is our music instructor, and that's who hired me as a guard coach. And that's where I got all my material from this last week for this meeting. Are you going to email out also that those graphs you showed earlier about the each individual or groups of performances?
Yep, absolutely. So that is something that'll be posted on the website, and I'll email out to everyone as well.
Okay,
Definitely.
thank you very
Great
much.
Question.
How soon will you be emailing those out?
I can email it out after this meeting.
Well, just so that if we do decide to do it, that we start getting, I like to get stuff started ASAP, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I can send this out shortly after the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions about the transition to the WGI model? We'll just take all questions now, or winter 2021. We have a few minutes left, so I want to make sure that we answer all your questions.
I will definitely say about transition to the WGI model. If you are very unsure and this is something that's more new for you, I know when I was first teaching, I really wish I had like a mentor that said like, hey, this is how you do a show. I didn't have that. I actually had to seek it out myself. I had to listen to podcasts. I finally found the WGI manual. If you read that thing, that has a plethora of information for you. There's a lot of videos on the WGI website right now. And there's even more podcasts that are coming out. Listen to the Get It podcast. Shameless plug about that. They talk a lot about Winter Guard. You can find it on Spotify. They're also on iTunes. But like, read the manual. Take this time that we're going to be, you know, in place until, you know, whenever we can come out of this, and just do research and watch shows. And then you'll feel so empowered and so prepared so that we can meet in person for a regular season, that you will be very, very ready. But yeah, definitely read the manual and read that handout that we created for you, that the steering committee also helped us with. It'll be very, very important for your development.
Super good point, grantees. And I just wanted to bring up something that the committee has tossed around as well, is how we can provide more support for some of the younger guard. And so it's definitely something that we're considering. And just one main idea that we've had is having a clinic for only novice and intermediate instructors and students, or like middle school instructors and students. So it's definitely something that we want to nurture the performers and the instructors in our association. And really, we want to see people grow. The idea would be that we provide so much support and structure, and that by implementing the trainings to the judges for this WGI transition, that we would see growth with our unit. So that would ultimately be our goal. So I guess I kind of wanted to go back to what Joy was saying and say that we do want to support you. So we're trying to find ways to best support everyone in our association. And if you have ideas, please reach out to us, but it's something that we're all, as a committee, always brainstorming as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Brian, and then Jen, and then Nikki.
Okay, just want to thank you and the committee for all the hard work. I know this is a major undertaking. The steering committee, Lee, it's good to see you in here. I see nothing but excellence coming at the end of this. The transition is going to be tough for people that have been around a while, that haven't had one foot in two different circuits kind of thing. But I think ultimately the product that's going to happen and the education the kids are going to get, and most important, their experience. And it's also going to be nice for us to be able to do things in our local circuit with folks that we compete against at the marching season and whatnot, and kind of keeping it a little bit tighter that way. That'll help as expenses start to add up and busing and whatnot. So I'm really, really excited for what's happening. I want to thank you guys for putting together a great presentation, and really do appreciate all the other support from the ancillary people on the back end, because I know that you don't come up with this nice slick presentation lickety split. So thank you for your hard work, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian, for your kind words. Appreciate it. We're gonna go Jen, then Nikki, and then somebody raised their hand. I saw it. Jen.
Okay, I just have a couple more questions. Just kind of things that popped up when we were talking about exhibition groups. I'm just curious, because I've seen it in other circuits where show host groups are actually competing instead of exhibition under the WGI model. So I'm curious to know if that's going to be the case moving forward. Obviously not for a while, I'm assuming, but if that's going to be the case, or if we're going to stick to the NCBA model of that. My next question would be spring. I'm really curious to know if we're still trying to push forward a spring marching season. I know it's on topic, but for me, I am meeting with my cohorts next week, finally, after 6 months. So I kind of have to figure out my scheduling of everything and try to throw all the balls in the air and hope to goodness that they don't all crash on the ground. The last thing is, Grantees actually brought up a really interesting, something that kind of sparked my brain, and it's something that I do a lot with some of my graduated kids that go on to instruct other programs in the area. It might be kind of something to think about at least on our side of things, is maybe starting a mentor program for younger groups or younger instructors that kind of need just a little bit more help, like how to read sheets and things like that, or what you're looking at when you're staring at a winter floor, because 9 times out of 10 they're performers and they've never stepped into this role before. So I know it was a lot of information, but I just figured I'd get them all out, and that's it for me, I promise.
Okay, so great questions. Let me make sure that I can answer. I think there was 3 of them. The first one, so we are still tossing around the idea, and probably we'll have to bring it to the board also, to see if the hosting schools will be an exhibition or if they will be competing at their own show. So to be determined still. Thanks for bringing that up though. The second question was about spring 2021. Thank you, Colin. I don't have an answer on that. I know that the Christy Latham is over Parade and Field, and she's working really hard on that. So I will definitely defer to her for that answer. I can reach out to her and maybe ask her to send an update to the membership so that people kind of have an idea of what to plan for. But I do know that there has been a lot of conversation about hopefully having a spring season. It'll be smaller than fall, but yeah. And then about the mentor idea, I think that is a terrific idea. I think it's something that we can do to help build up new programs, young instructors, struggling programs. I think it's an excellent idea and another great way to bring the NCBA community together as a whole. So thanks for raising that, and it's something that we'll definitely continue to talk about. Nikki.
Okay. I wanted to echo Joy's uncertainty with us all the middle schoolers being in this category. And then I was thinking, like, I'm looking at the schools have the option in middle school to go up into the high school category if they feel that they're ready for that. And I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling that those people who are scoring those 90s that we're so worried about will probably opt for that option because they're going to be in a higher category than what the rest of us are doing. So, and it's hard for us, I know, for middle school, because what happens is, like, we'll get a good group and we'll like build with them, and then they all graduate at the same time, and we're starting from square one with a brand new, like, tiny team and having to rebuild entirely. Unlike high school, where you kind of have a little bit more of a cycle because you have a larger population, we're like, yeah, okay, woo! Oh no, and we start again. So I feel you, Joy. I'm at the oh no stage right now. I just lost all my 8th graders, and I have like a 4-person team. And then the other thing is, when I was training like some of my assistant coaches on like how to build their own shows and stuff like that, I wrote like a little essay paper. I am fully open and willing to just like share that with anyone who wants it, just so that they have. It's taken more from like college choreography classes that I've taken for dance than for color guard, and then I've modified it to work for what we're doing. And like I said, I used it when I was training my assistant coaches. I used it when Antioch High School back in the day had their students writing their shows. I would work with them and kind of help them figure out their path. And I'm willing to share that with anyone. It's definitely not like a grand thing. It's definitely like this is a starting spot. But anyone who wants it and wants to use it for training, I'm willing to share.
I'd love to see it.
Shoot me an email, parkmscolorguard@gmail.com, and I'll type it in the comments. You guys can copy paste for people like me who are dyslexics and switch letters. And then anyone who emails me, I'll just send that right to you. So.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Nikki, for offering that and being a supportive member of the community. Not only are you willing to send that, but you're also part of our steering committee. First ever NCBA Instructor Steering Committee. Go ahead, Joy.
I wanted to attach to what Nikki said about the teams that are in middle school and who will be scoring up into those higher scores above the middle schoolers. Will they be, because I know when guards in high school get a higher score in a level where they shouldn't be, and you guys ask them to move up, is that going to be an option for a middle school group also? I mean, if they are scoring super high in a middle school group, are you going to, as the NCBA, is the NCBA going to ask them to move up into the high school group?
I think that we would encourage it. We wouldn't require it if they were in middle school. So middle schools can choose to go to a higher division, but it wouldn't be required. But if we thought that maybe a middle school might be more competitive in a higher class, it's something that we would definitely encourage for sure.
Okay.
Because I think that it pushes people stronger when they're grouped with people of the same ability. So it's something that we would encourage, but we would not require for middle school. Thanks. Good question. Any other questions? Amber, hand up. There,
Yeah,
nice.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Two questions. One, if we have like a smaller school, because you're allowing middle school to move up, can middle school and high school combine now as long as they're in a high school division, or do they still need to be separate?
Good question.
And then I have another question, not related. My other question is, I just want to confirm that for this season that the students, if they're recording something to submit, they don't have to actually be together. Like our county is like super behind on all the rollbacks. And so I just don't really know how long we're gonna not be able to be at school.
Yeah, great question. To answer your second question, no, they do not have to be together to put together a group performance. So if they know how to be creative with the video editing and tile it together on the screen, I think that would be so awesome. I would love to see that. So that's to answer question number 2. Question number 1, I don't know if I have a good answer to that yet.
I don't for sure either. I want to say something wrong, but I'm pretty sure if it was a middle school and a high school combined, they would go to
the higher
high school. There's something specific in the WGI rules.
Yeah.
We would have to talk about that, where it's like within a certain district, you know how some middle schools and even elementary schools and high schools are in the same district, that they would use the high school name. There's some specifics on that. But yeah, if we can definitely make sure that we know the firm answer later and then let you know. But that's usually, it's kind of more unusual, but it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, I would have assumed to perform in high school. Our school is like a 6 through 12 school, so that's the only reason I was asking. But I mean, I'm willing to separate as long as I get enough kids. I just, we'll see. Thank you.
Lee?
Yeah, WGI does allow for schools combined, but the great thing about WGI is they won't dictate to the circuit what rules to use. You choose to use the score sheets if you want to, you choose to use the combining of schools if you want to, but you don't have to. And we won't be losing our circuit partnership. So that's really a decision the NCBA board needs to make if they want to have schools combining and how they're going to do that.
Okay.
But WGI
Thanks for that clarification. So committee will talk about it and then we'll make a recommendation for that. Great question, Amber.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I have several schools in our district at middle schools, because we're a rural area. We have a lot of middle schools in our rural area and everything comes into the Galt High School district. It would be really interesting to know that if we could incorporate the students from those rural schools into our middle school team, that would be fabulous. It would increase our numbers and it would be wonderful if we could do that. If that's something that's a possibility, please let me know, because I would love to advertise to those other schools to get kids involved in this program.
Up here in Orland, we're the same way too. We have a lot of K through 8th grade schools. They either go to Hamilton or Orland to high school, and I'm the same way, Joy. I would like to advertise and say, hey, we could do this. Just get our team bigger and better.
Yeah, that'd be fabulous.
Great points. I think that Colin is taking notes on this, and we'll talk about it as a committee, and we'll reach out with an answer specifically. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Is everyone on here? Did everyone get the emails from me? Just so I can make sure that I have everyone on here's email address.
Okay, you probably don't have my email address, Marcus. Like I said, Corey Goga is our music instructor, and he's the one that was overlooking all this, but he's trying to put it more on me now that I'm the new guard coach. Can I have your email? Can you put it in the chat box, or I'll put mine in the chat box?
Yeah. So if you, Colin, if you can grab her email address once she puts it, that'd be great. Cool. Okay, sorry. I have a new NCBA email address for the board and I keep forgetting. What is it? Winter Activities at ncbaonline.net, I think. Something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Cool. So we're at time. If anyone has any other questions, of course, we can stay on and entertain them. But for the respect of everyone else's time, that ends our discussion. If you don't have any questions, feel free to log off. If you still have questions, feel free to stay on and we will filter through all those questions. But I just want to say to everyone, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to chat with us. If people are interested in these kind of chats, we can have more of them, especially if it's like we want to help you dive into the design analysis sheet or dive into the new scoring system. We're definitely open to those kind of training opportunities. So please, please, please just reach out and let us know. So with that, if there's nothing else, thank you so much. If you have questions, stay on and we'll answer all your questions. But thanks so much for joining us today. And I hope that some of this was helpful.
And I'm drafting a guide for the non-competitive things if you want to get more information. There's a lot of things online that are already being created, so make sure you check your email, but Marcus is sending out that documentation as well. But thank you all for coming.
Yes. Please stay on if you have questions. If not, we'll talk to you soon.